back to another video. It's my first time uploading in a decent chunk, which is my apologies for that, because it is a um, election year, the year 2020. We have the president up for on the ballot, and we have 35 Senate seats, and we have all the House seats. So it will be a election to be remembered, is my prediction. So today what we have is my current thoughts on the Senate map. Today is October 6th, 2020. When I'm recording this, things can change. A lot of things will probably change before election night itself. And even on election night, I've heard a lot that we won't know until maybe a few weeks later, maybe even a month or two later. So we'll see. This is going to be an election like no other, in many different ways. So regardless, let's get started on how I think the Senate map will shake out if the election were today. So I'm going to start off with the likely Republican seats. In Kentucky, Mitch McConnell's seat was up for grabs. It still is technically up for grabs, obviously, but there's really not a great chance that happens. When Booker was defeated in the primary, when he lost to McGrath, you could really tell that enthusiasm dropped off, and she has not been doing as well in the polls as she was and Booker was at a certain point, whenever it was more primary time. So honestly, I think it's really, really challenging for me to see Mitch McConnell go home and lose this election. In the Georgia special election, I have leaning more Republican than the other election in Georgia, which I'll get to that whenever I talk about the regular Georgia election. So yeah, and then likely Democratic states. Michigan, they have a decently popular Democratic incumbent. Michigan, on the federal level for the president, is looking like it'll go blue. So if it goes blue for Joe Biden, it'll definitely go blue for the incumbent Democratic senator, because they're decently popular there. And I know that the momentum will carry down the ballot for the Democrats decently well this year. Going along with that, in a way, I have the state of Arizona in the likely blue column. Martha McSally got appointed after John McCain's death, and she's up for re-election. She's losing pretty decently in the polls right now to her challenger, and Arizona is a state that's been trending blue. Like in the 2018 Senate election, it was Martha McSally versus Kyrsten Sinema, and Martha McSally lost. And there's no real incumbency advantage if you get appointed. There's no. I mean, I'm sure there's some level of fundraising that you get that would be different, but there's not a huge advantage to it. There's not some crazy shift because of that. So now we're on to the leaning Republican states. We have South Carolina. Lindsey Graham is not the most popular incumbent, but in a pretty solidly red state in South Carolina, it's going to be hard to see him lose to Jamie Harrison. Jamie Harrison was polling pretty well around the same time that Mitch McConnell was getting challenged. So Democrats in general were just doing very well at that point. And that enthusiasm has kind of died off for Jamie Harrison, unfortunately for his campaign. And it's a very similar situation to Mitch McConnell. I saw something that there's around $10 million in ads that Lindsey Graham's, some GOP like PAC or something was putting $10 million in ads in South Carolina. So I think it's really going to be an uphill battle, and I don't think Jamie Harrison and his campaign is going to be able to outdo Lindsey Graham's. Alabama, I have Alabama going red. This is a flip. Doug Jones is currently an incumbent for the Democratic Party. He won on a special election against Roy Moore. That was mainly because Roy Moore was a spectacularly bad candidate. Like, he had allegations of, it was either pedophilia or rape, it might have been both. He was just a spectacularly awful candidate. And now that they have someone who's not Roy Moore and who's like decent, like, they don't even need to be some like crazy good politician. They need to be a Republican that's not a complete lunatic. And they have that race. So I have in Montana as well, I have that sticking with the Republican Party, even though the current governor, Steve Bullock, is running against the current incumbent Republican senator. I don't think it'll be enough for the Democrats to win. This is one of the closer ones. This is in the top 6. Yeah, I definitely think that it will be a challenge for Bullock to make that up. Kansas, I forgot to mark, but Kansas is definitely going Republican in my mind. I would even think about putting it in the likely column. But yeah, I just forgot to do that. So yeah, I just filled it in now. So we have the final 5, which is Colorado, Iowa, the Georgia regular Senate election, North Carolina, and Maine. So we're going to start off in Colorado, and I foresee Colorado going blue fully. This means they would have 2 Democratic senators. Colorado's been trending Democratic for a long time now. And this is the last real barrier they have, because they have the governorship. I think they have the House in their state. Honestly, they're just definitely becoming a more blue state. It used to be more of a swing state, like when I was a lot younger, but now it's really not. It's pretty clear. Like, even on the presidential level, like, no one's saying that Colorado's going for Trump. And that's just really been a shift in demographics. The Latino community is really growing there. And they generally vote more Democratic. So yeah, I definitely see Hickenlooper flipping the seat and taking it away from Gardner. So next up, I have the Georgia regular election, and I said that there was a reason why. There are 2 reasons why. The incumbent senator, whose name is escaping me now, of course, up against Jon Ossoff. He ran in 2018 for the other Senate seat, and he lost, but that kind of gave him some name recognition, and that name recognition is way more than anyone else in the special election has. So whenever it's basically the special election, it's more or less generic Republican versus generic Democrat. And in a state like Georgia, that's probably going to go Republican. Whenever someone with a little bit more name recognition, like Ossoff has, it'll be a little bit closer, but ultimately I don't think it'll be enough to change it blue. Now let's move on to the next state. North Carolina, I see it going blue. Thom Tillis is, I know Thom Tillis is in the race, and Cunningham is in the race as well. I definitely think that the Democrats, North Carolina generally, it's a swing state. It's going to be a swing state this year too, on the presidential level. But ultimately, I see Thom Tillis beating out Cunningham. I think I'm getting that right. I'll double check. But the Democratic candidate has been consistently pulling ahead, usually above the margin of error, which that's usually a pretty good indication of things to come in that sense. So Maine is a very interesting election because they have ranked choice voting, which I think will help the Democrats and help give Sarah Gideon the win in Maine. So there's really only two scenarios that I can foresee. If Suzanne Collins wants to win, she needs to hit 50% in that first round. Like that's what's got to happen for her, because the other real candidate, like there are three candidates who like went on the debate stage, and that was Gideon, Collins, and the Green Party nominee. So the Green Party, if I'm sure you're probably aware, leans much more Democratic than leans Republican. So Lisa Savage's voters, the Green Party nominee for the Senate seat, will most likely, more of them will vote for Gideon on the second round if Lisa Savage would be eliminated because neither candidate hit 50%. So if it gets to that point where the ranked choice part comes in and they're eliminating people, I think Sarah Gideon wins at that point. But if Suzanne Collins hits 50%, she wins. So those are really the two scenarios. I feel like it's less likely that Suzanne Collins hits 50% on the first round. So that's why I'm saying it's going blue. Now, Iowa is a really tough call. Iowa has consistently been the closest state. All the Senate map projections are split. They all have it as a toss-up. Some have it 51% for the Republicans, and others have it 53% for the Democrats. So it's really close, and it will be a very tough and close election. This is the one I'm not super confident on. But I have Iowa going blue. I have three main reasons for this. First off, it's a wave against the president. In 2014, the last time this seat was up for election, Obama was president. And whenever, during midterms, the incumbent president usually doesn't do well. The incumbent party usually loses seats. So it was it was really an uphill battle for the Democrats at that point. They lost fairly handily. I think it was around 8 points. But this time, the shoe's on the other foot. Donald Trump's the incumbent president, and there's a lot of momentum on the Democratic side, all the way up and down the ticket. So that's why I think that favors the Democratic nominee. The second reason is the third parties hurt the Republicans way more than they hurt the Democrats. So I looked into all the candidates running for the election. There was no Green Party candidate, which sometimes can hurt the Democrats if they have the Green Party nominee there. But the two independent, there's one independent who's more conservative leaning, I would say. But they're pretty moderate in general, so they would take away from each side equally. And then the other candidate is the Libertarian candidate, which I would think at least would hurt the Republicans a little bit more than the Democrats. And in a race that's this close, that could definitely be the deciding factor. And finally, the GOP nominee has only won one poll since the beginning of August. So August 5th, all the way up to when I was doing my research for this video, they've won one poll, and I think it was by like 3 points. Whereas the Democratic nominee has been consistently winning the polls, beating the margin of error in most of them. So I really think that all signs are pointing towards the Democrats on this one, but you definitely cannot rule this out. Like I said, this is going to be the closest one in my opinion. We're probably not going to know on election night. We might not know for a decent amount of time. I think it's going to be very, very close. So, with all my projections, I think the Democrats will take control of the Senate, 51-49. This is what the Congress would look like. Arizona would go fully blue. Alabama would go fully red. North Carolina would become mixed. Michigan would stay fully blue. Maine would get rid of the Republican. And yeah, so that's essentially it. So thank you all for watching this video. Let me know down below what you think. What you think the closest race will be as well. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also join us on the subreddit /JPC Reddit. And I am Joe's Political Chatter, and I will see you all in the next video.